It is Thursday, December 4th. We have a big show today. Democrat Senator Mark Warner joining the seditious six this morning, jumping aboard the bandwagon, going even further than Mark Kelly even did. Wait till you see this. Stephen A. Smith calling it out, wrecking these Democrats on The View this morning. The hosts on The View left speechless. And finally, after 5 years, the D.C. pipe bomber has been caught, identified, and arrested. This is huge news. The man named as one Brian Cole, 30 years old, from Virginia. Yes, a man, not a woman. And more stories as well from around the country.
I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Virginia Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat, and not just any Democrat, the ranking member of the Select Committee on Intelligence, meaning a member of the Gang of Eight, has just joined the seditious six this morning, going on MS Now or MSDNC to call for the U.S. military to basically overthrow the president's elected government. It's now becoming clear what's happening here. Watch what he just said.
Unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is an administration that's fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Mm-hmm. And I think in many ways, the uniform military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump, and I expect Bradley to adhere to that.
So, Senator, let's go a little further on this. What are concerns you have about the legality of these strikes at all?
That is the vice chairman of the Select Committee on Intel saying that, urging the military to basically turn on the commander-in-chief. It's bizarre how brazen they are about this. Everyone knows there's no illegal orders being given. Top brass at the Pentagon, people like Pete Hegseth, are followed around by dozens of attorneys. No strike is ordered without the legal team at the Pentagon signing off. If an order Hegseth wants to give is illegal, they would modify it so it's not. They all know this. What they're doing is causing confusion in the rank and file, purposely causing confusion. Think about it. Even if just one drone operator or a commander, let's say, was to come forward and listen to these Democrats and come out and say that they refused an illegal order, what do you think would happen? That person would become the star witness in a future impeachment. They're laying the groundwork here for their 2026 plan. And it's sick, it's twisted, using our military as political cannon fodder, politicizing the U.S. military, and everyone knows it, including normal, moderate Democrats like Stephen A. Smith.
So you recently accused Senator Mark Kelly, a veteran, an astronaut, of crossing the line for participating in a video reminding troops that they can refuse to follow illegal orders. Okay. Let's see some of what you said, my friend.
Sure.
You know better, Senator Kelly. You know better. How dare you do that? You could go to the House. You can draw up paperwork. You can try to start articles of impeachment if you think there's something illegal. I mean, damn, it ain't like y'all haven't done it before. You impeached the man twice. Where'd that get you? Got his behind back in the White House. Had you left him alone since 2020, maybe he wouldn't be back. You don't tell military men and women to ignore an order from the commander-in-chief. You don't do that.
Caffeine's a bitch, you know?
Now, let me just remind you that Pete Hegseth said in 2016, I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. Okay. Now, given the fact that the secretary himself said that, I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Okay.
I didn't stutter when I said it.
You want to stay loud and wrong?
Well, you could call it loud and wrong all you want to. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine.
And it's not just these now 7 Democrats who are doing this. If you notice, other Democrats are making these bizarre statements, threatening people, normal people who are just helping the Trump administration, helping their country, telling not just members of the military, but CEOs, private citizens even, if you help this administration, you'll face consequences, legal consequences.
As much as Trump and his cronies want to act like we have no power to respond, the truth is we are more powerful than we think we are. And I want to underscore the importance of using every single leverage that we have at our arsenal, because we do have a lot of leverage. We need to make sure that those who are collaborating with the authoritarian regime pay a costly price.
What in the world does that mean? Very bizarre. Meanwhile, all of this tying back to Trump's policy of bombing these cartel drug boats leaving Venezuela. This week, we saw the Washington Post write that story about Hegseth giving an illegal order, claiming he gave a kill them all order. Well, that story's been completely debunked now. ABC even admitting that the narco-terrorist climbed back onto the vessel before the second strike was ordered, climbed back on the boat, and they were seen on video trying to salvage the drugs and contact other cartel members in the vicinity, completely debunking Democrats' claims that the second strike were war crimes.
And tonight, new information. According to a source familiar with the incident, the two survivors climbed back onto the boat after the initial strike. They were believed to be potentially in communication with others and salvaging some of the drugs. Because of that, it was determined they were still in the fight and valid targets. A JAG officer was also giving legal advice. So again, David, that video will be key, and Admiral Bradley will be on the Hill tomorrow behind closed doors.
Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley going to the Hill this morning, briefing members of the Intel Committee on these strikes, showing them the video and the evidence for the first time, which appears to be so convincing that even the ranking member of the House Intel Committee had to admit, yes, they were carrying drugs. They tried to recover the drugs. Watch this.
Happening now, the admiral who ordered that double strike on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean that's been at the center of a growing congressional investigation is now briefing top lawmakers on that decision. Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley, the commander of U.S. Special Operations Command, is speaking to senators right now as questions mount around the strikes and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's involvement. Here's how the top Democrat on the House Intel Committee described the briefing they just got.
Yes, they were carrying drugs. They were not in the position to continue their mission in any way. People will someday see this video and they will see that that video shows, if you don't have the broader context, an attack on shipwrecked sailors.
Who ordered that?
The last thing I'm going to say is that the Admiral confirmed that there had not been a kill them all order, and that there was not an order to grant no quarter.
So once again, a week full of fake news debunked. Another story, a huge development. The J6 pipe bomber caught, arrested this morning, identified as one Brian Cole, 30 years old, residing in the state of Virginia and maybe tied to Antifa. That's what we're hearing. NBC even reporting this and the Antifa connection. But before we look at that, a quick message from our friends over at Black Forest Supplements. This is the bone marrow hack that damn near makes those $50,000 stem cell injections obsolete. Your bone marrow's holding millions of stem cells hostage, but this powder sets them free. Right now, stem cells are trapped in your bones, doing nothing while you're falling apart. This genius doctor from Harvard discovered that cocoflavanols are like a jailbreak for stem cells. They burst out like bees in a beehive into your bloodstream, looking for damage to repair. Jacked up knees, they go there. Heart damage, they go there too. Brain fog, they cover that as well. Rich people are paying $50,000 to inject foreign stem cells, but this activates your own. No rejection, no trips to Mexico needed. Check out Dr. Simon Mills, one of the top herbal medicine researchers in the world.
Dark chocolate is a medicine, end of. One of the best medicines around is 50 grams to 100 grams of 75% or more dark chocolate. Brain health as well, cardiovascular health. They do studies where they've put cocoa into volunteers, that means students usually, so young kids, and they were able to show changes in the blood flow within minutes, certainly within an hour, of eating cocoa. Beneficial changes in your blood flow.
They call it the heart medicine.
Yeah, heart, circulation, brain, but it also, of course, we know it contains a few other beneficial stimulating effects, sort of similar to the effects with coffee, which incidentally, as I already said, is a medicine as well. But cocoa and chocolate does have a uplifting effect, which is why we love it so.
That's right, dark chocolate. But here's where people get it wrong. The flavonols, the part that actually does something, get destroyed when chocolate is processed. So hot chocolate, that's not going to work. But with Black Forest cocoa, flavonols and flavonoids, they take the finest cocoa and they extract the flavonols out of it into a 1,200 milligram clinical dose. It's the first of its kind. Those flavonols are what activate your stem cells. Made in the USA, there's chocolate, then there's ceremonial cocoa, and then there's cocoa flavonols. The other two aren't even in the same league. This is the undisputed champ when it comes to cocoa powders, and it's not even close. I was having so much pain in my shoulders from all the years that I used to work out, and I was starting to get a bit worried. I started putting this in my morning coffee because I read so many good things about it. I had no idea what it was going to end up doing to my shoulder. Black Forest just launched their biggest deal of the year, and it's insane. Buy one, get one free on the entire store, plus get an extra free bottle of NMN with every order. Yes, every single order gets a bonus NMN on top of the full buy one, get one. This ends in 48 hours, and when it's over, it's gone for good. Cocoa prices, they have been skyrocketing, folks, worldwide over the last few months, so I don't expect prices to be this cheap ever again. So if you've been thinking about trying it, act now. Once 48 hours pass this promo, it's going to be gone and prices will go back up again. Stock up before it's gone forever. Take control of your health before someone else does it for you.
Yeah, sure. I was smiling at you because I certainly remember the moment. Darren remembers it too. He said, "Are you sitting down?" He called me on the phone. I said, "Oh boy, why? Is this bad news?" And he said, "I think we got him." What exactly that tip was, we're going to have to pass on that for right now while we're still, obviously we're in the prologue of a long book. This is just the beginning. This is not the end of the investigation, as you all well know, having reported on these for a long time. There's interviews to be conducted. The search warrant processing scene is not even done. So we're at the early stages, so that's the only reason I hesitate to tell you what the exact tip was. But yes, that was absolutely the moment, and it was due to the diligent and incredible work of a team in the Washington field office that came in and just scoured through this over and over and over and over again.
In general, was it forensic? Was it a phone call? Was it something about a vehicle?
We'll just leave it generally forensic evidence. Yeah, it's fair enough to say.
How long ago was that?
Excuse me?
How long ago that was?
I'd rather not say because of the ongoing interview process, and I don't want to.
And the pipe bomber being linked to Antifa, it's not a far stretch. We all know Antifa was there. They were on the ground during J6. There were confrontations between Antifa and the Proud Boys. There's even video of undercover agents that day saying they're there looking for Antifa. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, they scrapped the entire team 6 weeks ago. The main team working on this case for years was scrapped in October. Kash and Dan, they put a whole new team in place with brand new leadership. And what do you know? Bam! 6 weeks later, they find him. They make an arrest. Were the FBI people that were working on this case for years just incompetent, or were they purposely throwing the investigation because the pipe bomber they thought may not be a Trump supporter? There was a lot of evidence supporting that, because if you put yourself back in the mindset of where the country was in January 2021, just imagine if the FBI would have caught this guy, a possible Antifa militant, in the days after J6. That would have been huge. It would have been colossal. The entire narrative would have fallen apart. What we know so far, Brian Cole from the state of Virginia, arrested today in connection with the J6 pipe bomb incident. He's been charged with placing the bombs and linked to statements supporting anarchist ideology, Antifa ideology.
As you know, Kash and Dan made this a priority. They have devoted new resources, new investigative tools to this cold case. and it appears a man from Virginia, NBC News is reporting his name as Brian Cole, could be tied to Antifa. Another media outlet is reporting. I cannot confirm that independently. However, this appears to be the individual who is seen on that surveillance video from the evening of January 5th, 2021, between 7:30 and 8:30 on Capitol Hill, allegedly planting these really what they were dummy devices outside the headquarters of both the Republican National Committee and the Democratic
Julie, hang on, Julie. The whole narrative that we've been fed, the whole reason Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon went to prison was that Antifa and these people had nothing to do with J6. This was all Donald Trump's people. What are you telling me? The guy may be an anarchist and might be, although you haven't confirmed it, might be associated with Antifa, ma'am.
I have been told for years by J6ers who were on the ground that they saw Antifa. We can see video of people dressed in that black bloc garb who were tied to Antifa.
All of this coming only weeks after the Blaze suggested a former U.S. Capitol Police officer, a woman, was a 94 to 98% match, claiming to have identified her using gait analysis, reporting the unique stride of that officer matching almost perfectly to the video surveillance of the pipe bomber. And look, I'll say, when watching the video footage that's been released, personally, I see a woman. It looks like a woman. The person looks to be around 5'4", 5'5" maybe, walking like a woman, lots of hip movement. With that being said, I doubt that they would just arrest a random person. We'll see the evidence soon enough. What's infuriating, though, is how the former FBI director and the former team working on this, Chris Wray, had this evidence for years, and they did nothing. Either they did nothing or they were just too incompetent to figure it out. The Trump Department of Justice says they're set to clean voter rolls of dead people in more than half of U.S. states before the midterm elections. 26 states set to wipe deceased people from the voting rolls. Assistant AG for Civil Rights Harmeet Dillon revealing this week this process will start in the coming weeks. The announcement setting off like a thermonuclear bomb in D.C. Democrats losing their minds over this. Why? Why would Democrats be opposed to removing dead people from the voter rolls? I wonder. Maybe, just maybe, it could make a significant difference for them in the midterms. Here's John Solomon explaining why he believes Dems are freaking out about this. Watch what he said.
26 states are about to be forced to clean up their voter rolls and take off the non-citizens, the dead people, the triple registrars. The 26th election could be fundamentally different for the Democrats because they won't have dirty voter rolls. That is a Harmeet Dillon success story.
This is something that should happen automatically. Shouldn't it? At least once a year, all deceased people should be removed from the voter rolls. Unfortunately, it seems just like other common sense policies like voter ID, for instance, one party refuses to touch it. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.